I've been very much looking forward to the topic for this visit to Phoenix, the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. This, or a variation on the theme of this painting, or this image of the 6 Goswamis with the Govardhan Hill in the background, is found on altars in ISKCON all around the world. Because along with our current line of disciplic succession, these 6 are particularly responsible and empowered representatives of Lord Caitanya for carrying forward the mission and the message. Each of them are uniquely qualified, what to speak of all 6 of them being most wonderful Vaishnavas. We'll hear the details of their lives and their contributions. Each of them were sent by Lord Caitanya to Vrindavan. Well, Jiva Goswami was sent to Vrindavan by Lord Nityananda, but the others were sent directly by Lord Caitanya to carry forward his message and his mood and his teachings. So we're going to begin. Here's another nice painting where the 6 Goswamis would come together on a regular basis and discuss Krishna Katha, topics about Krishna. Primarily focused on Srimad Bhagavatam, but pastimes of Krishna and everything Krishna-centered. Amongst the 6, the 2 that were the senior most were Rupa and Sanatan. Sanatan being the elder brother of the 2, and naturally the younger brother, older brother dynamic was the younger brother looked up to and was submissive to the elder brother, as is Vedic culture. But it also has something to do with the nature of Rupa Goswami's humility, his natural humility. He saw his elder brother like a spiritual master and respected him that way and interacted with him in that way. They read each other's writings and critiqued each other's writings and relished topics of Krishna together as if one entity. But we're going to begin with Sanatana Goswami, and we'll hear something about his life and his characteristics. According to Gaura Gaudadesh Dipika, he is sometimes understood to be Rati Manjari or Lavanga Manjari, and Sanatana Kumar was also entered into the body of Sanatana Goswami. Now, it's not like he had 3 souls inside one body. It's not like that. But the mood of loving service of each of these personalities were part of his transcendental personality. A vibhuti of those persons, or the bhava of those persons, entered into his life. Most celebrated in the life of Sanatana Goswami was his relationship with Madan-mohan. Here you see a painting. Madan-mohan is being offered some badi. Badi is from the simple way that Sanatana Goswami maintained his life. He didn't have anything. He was living very simply like this. So he would sometimes just have flour and water mix the two, make it into dough, make the dough into a ball, put the ball into a fire, and the fire would burn the ball. He would break open the burnt part on the outside, and that's what he offered to his deity. Didn't even have a rolling pin or a pan to fry the chapati in. We'll hear some of these pastimes and loving exchanges with his deity. The deity of Madan-mohan, this is one of the pranam mantras we recite when we say our Mangalacharana. It's a pranam mantra for Madan-mohan, the deity of Sambandha Gyan. Let's say together. Jayatam surato pangor mama manda mater gati matsarvasva padam bhojo radha madana mohano. Glory to the all-merciful, Shri Radha and Madan-mohan. They are the only shelter of my depraved and crippled self. Their lotus feet are the be-all and end-all of my life. So these deities, Madan-mohan, were the deities of Sanatana Goswami's worship. And he worshipped them in conjunction with this temple. This is not a photograph, it's a British period painting. You see a sadhu sitting there by a tulsi plant. And over by the side of the temple is where Sanatana Goswami would sit. You see in that little faint painting there is his deity as he was writing and worshipping his deity. This temple is up on top of a hill. The hill is known as Dvadasa Aditya because the name came from the pastime of the Kaliya Leela, where Krishna had been wrapped in the coils of Kaliya and dancing on the hoods of Kaliya for the whole day, and his body was cold. So in order to get warm, he went on top of this hill and requested 12 suns simultaneously to shine on him and warm him up. Dvadasa, like Dwadasi. Dvadasha, Aditya, son of Aditi, the sun god. And it's a celebrated structure, beautiful architectural piece, that as soon as one sees this, you know where it is. It's Vrindavan and the home of Madan-mohan. Here's a nice description of Raghunath Das describing his relationship with Sanatana Goswami in a prayer from Bilapa Kusumanjali, where he expressed his appreciation, regard, and obligation to Sanatana Goswami. I was unwilling to drink the nectar of devotional service possessed of renunciation. But Sanatana Goswami, out of his causeless mercy, made me drink it, even though it was I was unable otherwise to do so. Therefore he, Sanatana Goswami, is an ocean of mercy. He is very compassionate to fallen souls like me, and thus it is my duty to offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Now those of you that like to hear Prabhupada's lectures, you're familiar with this phrase, paradukha dukhi. Paradukha dukhi. And in case you wondered where it comes from, this is where it comes from. It's Raghunath Das describing the nature of Sanatana Goswami. Those who are, his unhappiness is the unhappiness of others. Paradukha dukhi. Now, Raghunath Das is the personification of renunciation, saying, I was unwilling to drink the nectar of devotional service possessed of renunciation. He was drinking it and drinking it and drinking it. But he attributes his drinking it to Sanatana Goswami because of his compassion. And in the purport of that verse, Prabhupada writes, Sri Sanatana Goswami Prabhu, the teacher of the science of devotional service, wrote several books, of which Brihat Bhagavatamrita is very famous. Anyone who wants to know about the subject matter of devotees, devotional service, and Krishna must read this book. That's pretty strong, isn't it? I mean, it's in Caitanya Charitamrita, and who doesn't want to know about devotees, devotional service, and Krishna? So it's a must-read book. And it's a very wonderful book. Very, very wonderful book. Very amazing book. There's details in this book that just are not found elsewhere. And he's drawing largely from many Nana Shastra Vicharanai Kandipino, from many different scriptures, and piecing it all together and giving us lessons about Krishna and the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Brihat Bhagavatamrita is one of his principal works. Can you see what you can do to bring that image more in focus on the screen, on the wall? The projector focus, please. There's a little device right on the top that makes it, right on the top by the lens. Yeah. It's not keystone, it's focus. The image. It's not keystone, it's focus. That's the one I'm talking about. Okay. In addition to Brihat Bhagavatamrita, here's some of his other writings. Hari Bhakti Vilas. What's Hari Bhakti Vilas? Hari Bhakti Vilas is it's a how-to manual on all of the Vaishnava activities, how to do deity worship, how to observe Janmashtami, how to the mantras for sannyas, the mantras for Brahminical initiation, it's a how to do everything that has to do with Vaishnava rituals. The next is a commentary on the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. The next is a commentary on the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the next is something to do with the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Not exactly a commentary, but describing the pastimes found within the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. So obviously he likes the Bhagavatam. That's very clear. And he was instructed by Caitanya Mahaprabhu in the matters that are found in Hari Bhakti Vilas. And we'll hear something as we go further, the relationship between this Hari Bhakti Vilas and Gopal Bhatta Goswami. There is some idea, there's two ideas. He actually wrote the book, or the other idea and consulted Gopal Bhatta. The other is that Gopal Bhatta wrote the book and asked Sanatana Goswami to put it together in a proper form and not mention his name. That's the other idea. And that's what I grew up hearing. Hari Bhakti Vilas was actually Gopal Bhatta's work, but he wanted Sanatana Goswami to organize it and present it in its final form. So certainly he relied on notes of Gopal Bhatta. And these are his principal writings. A little bit about his life. Like Rupa Goswami, they were born in Saraswat Brahmana family. In one of Rupa Goswami's writings, he traces back their lineage 6 or 7 generations. Their ancestry comes from Karnataka, and there was some kind of disagreement, family dispute, something like that. And so the family started to migrate. They moved east, and then they moved north, and then they moved north. And they ended up in residing in Ramakeli. Now, the other relatives of Sanatan and Rupa were in another place, Chandapur. But Ramakeli was the capital of the Nawab at the time. And they were conscripted into the government service. At least the version that I've heard is amongst all the Vaishnavas in the area under the rule of the king, Sanatan and Rupa were most revered. And the Nawab, being very smart, he called them to visit him. They came. And he said, I would like you to be engaged in my government service. And I'll reward you handsomely. I'll give you land and give you wealth and everything. But I want you to help me in very critical ways in my government. And if you don't, then I'll torture and kill and cause difficulty for all the Vaishnavas in my kingdom. Think about it. Tell me which one you want to do. Not exactly in those words, but that was the nature of his offer. And so they didn't want either, but they took his service. This is just meant to be a painting to indicate what they did with the land and the wealth is they created a Vrindavan in Ramakeli on their own property. Here's Govardhan Hill and here's the river Jamuna and so forth and so on. And they were absorbed in Krishna Lila. They engaged brahmanas in reciting the scriptures and giving spiritual teachings. They didn't leave behind their Vaishnava ways and their Brahminical ways, but they also had this unpleasant service of serving under the Nawab. They simultaneously, they're about the same age as Caitanya Mahaprabhu, and they heard about his activities, especially after he had taken sannyas. And so they wrote letters to him, appealing that he somehow grant his shelter and relieve them of this awful service that they didn't want to have anything to do with, and that is the Nawab's government. No replies came back. They continued to send letters anyways. And one day, a puzzle letter came in reply, which read, "Become just like a wife who is attached to another man and will perform her worldly duties to her husband very nicely, so he doesn't suspect. But in her mind, she will always be thinking of the other man, waiting for the chance to meet him." Now, you and I might not understand what that means, but they understood what it meant. They understood that Lord Chaitanya would come in due course of time. For the time being, continue on with your service. as if you're into it, but don't be attached to it, and sometime I'll come. So he came. He came with his journey to Vrindavan, because when he had taken sannyas, that's what he wanted to do, but his mother sent him to Puri. From Puri he went to South India. From South India he came back to Puri. And then he wanted to go to Vrindavan. And delay after delay after delay, finally he went to Vrindavan, but there were thousands and thousands of people with him. And he didn't go straight to Vrindavan, he went to Navadvip, and then he went further north to Ramakeli, which is the capital of the Nawab. So the Nawab was a little nervous. Like, who's this mendicant with thousands and thousands of followers? Is there some intention to do me some harm? And so he asked one of his ministers. It's right in Caitanya Charitamrita. And the minister downplayed, oh, he's a mendicant. He's on his way to a holy place. Nothing to worry about. He is nothing. There's no harm for you. Then Nawab asked his personal secretary, we'll hear about this tomorrow evening, Dabir Khas, who is Rupa Goswami, was given the service of the personal secretary of the Nawab. So he asked him, and we'll hear what he said, but basically he minimized. But they were concerned that Nawab is a wild man, he could do anything at any time and hurt anybody, and so they came in the dead of night. Now there's 3 brothers, we only see 2 in the painting, and in Caitanya Charitamrita it only mentions 2. Whether their 3rd brother Anupam was also there or not at this time, not clear. But there we see the 2 at night. They met with Lord Nityananda and Haridas. They brought him to Lord Chaitanya wherever he was in a secluded place. And they offered nice prayers, which we'll read tomorrow, what they exactly said. And Lord Chaitanya was very moved by their humility and their elevated consciousness. And he said something to the effect, the details we'll get tomorrow. Actually, I had no reason to come this direction. I came only for you two, to deliver you two. So be patient, have no fear. The time will come where you'll be able to be in my association. And he changed their names from Sakhar Malik, who was Sanatana Goswami, to Sanatan. And Dabir Khas, he changed his name to Rupa. And Anupam, he called him Ballava. And Lord Chaitanya placed his hand on their heads. They placed his feet on their heads. And Sanatana Goswami made 2 suggestions. I find this is very interesting. They're at his feet, literally placing his feet on their head, and offering advice. This is how elevated Sanatana Goswami is. He could give advice to Lord Chaitanya. And one piece of advice he gave was, although our greatest pleasure in life is to have your association, we advise you, please don't stay here. The Nawab can do anything at any time. He's very cruel. And if he, for whatever the reason is, wants to do some harm, he could do harm. So best that you don't remain. Not another day. So he left the next day. And the second advice was, it's not a good idea to go to the Holy Dham with tens of thousands of people. You're a sannyasi. When you're visiting the Holy Dham, you should just go alone, or at most with one person. But this, it's not the way to enter the Holy Dham. I mean, it's not impudent. It's just his acumen. He understood how to say and what to say, and I find it amazing. The description is, the next day Lord Chaitanya was considering his advice and accepted his very good advice. And shortly thereafter, he returned back to Puri. Now the two brothers, or three brothers, from that point forward were just totally fixed in renunciation of their duties to the king. That's the painting is Nawab. We'll hear tomorrow about what Rupa and Ballabha did, or Rupa and Anupam. But Sanatana Goswami, the elder of the three, he remained. And Rupa Goswami had taken they renounced their worldly possessions. They became renunciates in every sense of the term. All of their wealth was given away. 10,000 gold coins was put in the care of a grocer somewhere in Ramakeli, which Sanatana Goswami took advantage of. And then the rest was taken by boat to where the relatives lived, at Chandapur. We'll hear that tomorrow. So Sanatana Goswami remained while the two of the brothers left, heading straight for where they thought Lord Chaitanya would be, because Lord Chaitanya had gone to Puri, and then immediately or shortly thereafter from Puri heading to Vrindavan. And they had sent messengers out to find out where he is. And when this happened, Lord Chaitanya had been in Vrindavan for 2 months, and he's now heading back for Puri. So that's where Rupa Goswami went. He went to Prayag to meet Lord Chaitanya there with Anupam. Sanatana Goswami remained, and but he didn't go to work. He didn't go to do his government duties. He was saying that he was ill. He wasn't ill. We'll touch on this. How can someone who's an elevated Vaishnava say a lie? And he said another one later too. So meanwhile, he wasn't ill. He had Brahmins come, and they were doing, their Brahmin thing, giving teachings and lessons, and Sanatana Goswami was learning. The Nawab sent a physician to check him. The physician reported back he's not ill. So the Nawab personally came and challenged him. And he was, very short discussion. My physician says that you're not ill. So I need your service. And you please indicate what's your intention. And Sanatana Goswami very directly said, you're the representative, you're the king. The king is the representative of God. And if you think that I've done something wrong, then you are certainly in the position to punish me if you wish. But I'm not going to resume my service. So the Nawab was very angry, and he had him imprisoned. It just says and then he took his armies and he went to do some conquering in Orissa from his capital in Ramakeli. So now we find Sanatana Goswami in prison, and he used some cleverness or trickery. He was very good. He knows his way with words and with people. And he knows that materialistic people are greedy. So he offered him 5,000 gold coins to free him by saying, "My dear sir, you're a very pious man, and anyone knows that by freeing others from their material existence, that you gain piety. So it would be a very pious act of you to release me, and here's 5,000 gold coins." And the fellow said, 5,000 gold coins, but when the Nawab hears that I set you free, he'll kill me. And he said, you can tell him a lie. I mean, you can tell him Sanatan went to the river to do his duties, and he jumped in with his chains and he drowned, and I searched for him and I couldn't find him. So you can tell him that story. And not only that, here's 2,000 gold coins more. And so the guard set him free. Now we're going to spend some time right now speaking about how can an elevated Vaishnava lie. We know, for example, in the Ramayana, Ram would always abide by the truth, or in Mahabharata, Yudhishthira would always abide by the truth. So what are the principles when one can tell lies? It happened again. Here's painting of a photo of some gold coins. When Sanatana Goswami was traveling, heading for where Lord Caitanya was, he was traveling with a servant named Ishan, and when he got to what's the Chaitanya Charitamrita calls the hilly tract of land, or the ramparts, there was a zamindar that had an astrologer assistant, and the astrologer assistant told him, someone is passing through your kingdom that has some fabulous wealth. And the zamindar was prepared to kill them. So when Sanatana Goswami showed up along with Ishan, he treated him so kindly and respectfully and spoke very nicely. And Sanatana, being a minister, he understood, wait a minute, what's this? It's too much respect, it's too much kindness. He wants something. So, very wisely, he asked Ishan, do you have any money with you? You have any gold coins? Ishan had 8 gold coins, and he said to Sanatana, I have 7 gold coins. He kept 1 gold coin at the end. And he said these gold coins could be death knell. We could be killed for it. Give them to me. And the first thing in the morning, Sanatana Goswami gave them to the zamindar, and the zamindar then told the whole story. I was going to kill you at night, but it's good for you. You've given me to know I don't have to have the sin of killing somebody. But now I have your gold coins. What can I do for you? He said, well, you can help me get to the other side of this mountain. So Ishan and Sanatana parted ways. And the zamindar helped him get to his destination. One of the places he stopped on the way to see Lord Caitanya was his brother-in-law's home. Doesn't give his name, just says his brother-in-law, which means Sanatana Goswami was married, and his wife's brother. So he stayed at his home. The brother heard the whole story. He said, just stay here, everything is safe. Sanatana Goswami declined to stay. He was going to meet Lord Caitanya. So his brother-in-law gave him a costly garment, a silk wrapper, it says in Chaitanya Charitamrita. And he was wearing that silk wrapper when he made his way to where Lord Caitanya was. Chaitanya at that time was staying at the house of Chandrasekhar and taking his meals at the home of Tapan Mishra. Tapan Mishra was the father of Raghunath Bhatta. Lord Chaitanya stayed at Chandrasekhar's home for 2 months on his way back to Puri, mainly for giving instructions to Sanatana Goswami. That's a very nice description. When Lord Chaitanya told Chandrasekhar there's a Vaishnava outside the door, please invite him in. Chandrasekhar went to the door, came back and said, there's no Vaishnav. There's a Muslim mendicant, but there's no Vaishnav. He said, bring him in. The Muslim mendicant was Sanatana Goswami, wearing a beard for looking like a Muslim man, and wearing that nice wrapper or blanket, costly blanket. And Lord Chaitanya, upon seeing him, immediately embraced him. And Chandrasekhar was very surprised. The affection shown between Lord Chaitanya and this Muslim mendicant that wasn't a Muslim mendicant. And Lord Chaitanya then gave instructions to Chandrasekhar, give him a shave, give him proper clothes, and give him a good meal. He's been fasting for days. As he was traveling through the forested area. He didn't go on the main roads for fear of being caught. So all those things happened. Chandrasekhar offered him a nice set of clothing. He declined and just took a loincloth instead. But he still had this silken wrapper. And so he went to the Ganges to take his bath, saw some sadhu there who had bathed and because his torn quilt was drying in the sun, and he offered to the sadhu, please exchange my blanket for your torn quilt. And the sadhu said, don't tease like this, you appear to be a respectable gentleman, it's not nice to tease. And Sanatan said, I'm not teasing, I wish to exchange the two. And so he took the torn quilt. And when Lord Chaitanya saw the torn quilt, there was a nice exchange between them, where Lord Chaitanya spoke about a physician, when treating a disease of a patient, is very careful to remove the disease completely. So you're going in this path of renunciation, and it was unfitting that you're keeping that nice quilt. He saw that Lord Chaitanya kept looking at it, like in disapproval. And so he got rid of it. And so he said, you're doing very nicely in the path of renunciation. So that's the direction that Sanatana Goswami was moving in, and he continued to move in. And as we just mentioned, for 2 months in Allahabad, Sanatana Goswami received instructions. We'll find those instructions, at least a summary of those instructions, very kindly by the mercy of Krishnadas Kaviraj in Caitanya Charitamrita. Details and details and details and details. The teachings of Lord Chaitanya to Sanatana Goswami is one of the essential Shiksha sections of Caitanya Charitamrita. He gave 4 basic instructions found in these 2 verses. O Sanatana, you should broadcast the revealed scriptures on devotional service and excavate the lost places of pilgrimage in the district of Mathura. That's 2. Establish devotional service to Lord Krishna and Radharani in Vrindavan. That's 3. You should also compile bhakti scriptures and preach the bhakti cult from Vrindavan. Broadcast, excavate, establish Radha Krishna worship and compile bhakti scriptures. So he did all four. And he gave it as his life and soul. Another celebrated pastime. So after those 2 months of instructing Sanatana Goswami, he directly told him, go to Vrindavan. Now, just before he met with Sanatana Goswami, he had met with Rupa, and he had sent Rupa to Vrindavan after instructing him for 10 days. So Sanatana Goswami got 2 months. And other things happened while with Rupa Goswami, with Sanatana and Rupa Goswami. So after staying for some time in Vrindavan, Sanatana Goswami was told that you can come see me in Puri, because Lord Chaitanya was on his way to Puri. So he went to Puri by way of the Jharkhand forest. How it's described is, he is very, very meticulous. So he found out the path that he traveled going through the Jharkhand forest. And he went from place to place in the Jharkhand forest and met with the people where he stayed, heard what happened when he stayed there, and went to the next place, on his way to Puri through the Jharkhand forest. But while he was passing through the Jharkhand forest, he drank some water from a place he shouldn't have taken water. And as a result, he contracted a disease. And the disease was a kind of skin disease where it was itching, and it made some liquid oozing sores. Prabhupada calls it weeping sores that emanate a kind of yucky, pussy substance from the opening of the sore. And so he saw this developing in his body, and he felt really badly because he knew that Lord Chaitanya's tendency was to embrace him, and he didn't want Lord Chaitanya to embrace his body and just smear all this yucky stuff all over his body. That was a big offense. And so as he was traveling, he developed the idea when he would see Lord Chaitanya, he would see Jagannath for Rath Yatra, he'd throw his body under the cart wheels of Rath Yatra cart and give up his life because he didn't want to make that offense with his sores smearing stuff on Lord Chaitanya's body. He didn't say anything to anybody. But after some time, when he reached Puri, Lord Chaitanya admonished him, you can't give up your body. You've surrendered it to me, it belongs to me, I have plans. And if it was as simple as throwing yourself under the wheels of the Rath Yatra cart, that's what we would all do. But we won't go to the spiritual world by that method. You do it by the method of service. So he stopped him. Then he still has this anxiety. I have this yucky stuff all over my body. So he was discussing with Jagatananda Pandit, much younger than Sanatana Goswami, and also renunciate. And Jagatananda gave the following advice. Why don't you attend Rath Yatra, and then after attending Rath Yatra, just go back to Vrindavan? So that understanding got passed back to Lord Chaitanya, who then severely chastised Jagatananda, saying, who are you to advise someone who is your superior? He blasted him. And then he said, I haven't given you permission to go back to Vrindavan. You stay here. So he can't give up his life. He can't go back to Vrindavan. What's he to do? And Lord Chaitanya continues to embrace him. So Lord Chaitanya said, why are you running away? It's like a mother with a small child that is messy, but the mother loves to embrace the small child. It gives me happiness. Don't deprive me of that happiness. I don't mind that your body is all messy. It gives me great pleasure. So poor Sanatana Goswami, he can't do anything. He can't go, he can't stay, he can't. Then Lord Chaitanya embraced him one more time, very firmly, and all the sores went away. Miracle cure. And Haridas Thakur was witnessing the whole thing. And after Lord Chaitanya left, he was glorifying Sanatana Goswami, saying, just see, he personally put you in this difficulty so that you had nothing else to do but completely surrender and depend upon him. And then poof, he just took away the disease. You're such a recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And of course, Sanatana Goswami said, no, you're the greatest recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy because you're super excellent both in prachar and achar. You're the acharya for the holy name, and Lord Chaitanya came to give the holy name, and you're the acharya for the holy name. And not just chanting, you're also preaching the glories of the holy name, so you're the greatest recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But it's a very celebrated event. This oozing sores pastime. During that 10-month period, another very famous pastime is the Sanatana Goswami was staying some distance away from with Haridas, and Lord Chaitanya was staying at Gambhira. So Lord Chaitanya sent a messenger, please ask Sanatana to come see me. So Sanatana was really happy to get that message. And he walked in such a way that he was by the beach and his feet blistered because it's really hot during the hot summer. And Lord Chaitanya saw his feet and said, what happened? Tell me how you came. And he said he went by the beach. He said, why didn't you go by the temple? It was very direct. And he said, if I were to go by the temple with my body with oozing sores, the brahmanas might come by and brush my body and become contaminated. So I didn't want that. So I went by the beach. But your feet are all blistered. So that's, having your association, I wasn't feeling anything. I was just anticipating being in your association. This is for the service of Lord Chaitanya. He was willing to undergo any personal hardship and difficulty, but for his own personal interest, any staying away from any offense was his way of life. After he returned to Vrindavan, then this significant event took place. This is a photograph of a tree near the base of the Dwadasya Aditya Tila, or where the Madan-mohan temple is, and it's called Advaitavat. It's the tree underneath which Advaitacharya stayed, because before Lord Chaitanya appeared, Advaitacharya also spent time in Vrindavan. He spent time by the side of Radhakund. There's a little temple where he stayed. But this is in Vrindavan town, and while he was there, he somehow or another, doesn't say how, he found a deity, the deity of Madan-mohan, which he personally worshipped. And before he left Vrindavan, going back to Shantipur, his home, he gave the deity in the care of a Mathura Brahmin named Purushottam Chobe. Purushottam Chobe worshipped the deity. The description is, he worshipped the deity not according to regulation. He was a spontaneous bhakta. And he worshipped the deity like the deity was his own son. And one time when Sanatana Goswami was doing Madhukari in Mathura, he came to this house and he saw what Purushottam Chobe was doing with deity worship, and he scolded him. This is not how you worship a deity. And he instructed him how to worship the deity, because he knew. And that night, the deity appeared in the dream of Purushottam Chobe and said, I want to be worshipped by that man. Take me to him tomorrow. So Purushottam Chobe was attached to Madan-mohan, but he was going to comply. So he went to where Sanatana Goswami was staying up on this hill and said, the deity wants to be worshipped by you, so please accept. And Sanatana Goswami declined, saying, I'm a mendicant, I don't have anything, how can I worship the deity? You have a home, I don't have a home, I sleep under a tree. I can't accept. Plus, what do I have to make offerings with? So he declined. That evening, Madan-mohan appeared in his dream again, saying, take me back. He said, I already took him there. He said, no. He said, take him there, go again. He'll say yes. Because that night, Madan-mohan appeared to him in Sanatana Goswami's dream. I want to be worshipped by you. So when he came, it's said there was either in the dream or something, some discussion. Sanatana Goswami said, how can I worship you? I don't have anything. He said, just whatever you have, whatever you eat. But I don't have any. He said, whatever it is, that's okay. I just want to be worshipped by you. He said, all right. But if there's difficulty, then I'll take you back to Purushottam Chobe's home, because he has a home and he's attached to you. So it was like a transcendental deal. And then this painting again. This is a clearer version of that painting. So when he was giving this bhati and whatever else he may have, one day the deity said to him, at least can we have a little salt? And Sanatana Goswami said, I told you, I don't have anything. I'll take you back to Purushottam Chobe's home. No, it's okay. Then the pastime took place where